So, are you a game developer?
Yeah, I'm Borb. I'm from Finland, and I've been developing games since I was 12, more seriously for like maybe 2 years or so.
Okay, and what's the game you're working on right now?
It's Emurom, or more internationally, I guess it's Emuram. It's a non-violent creature scanning Metroidvania with retro graphics and aesthetics.
You name it non-violent. Why non-violent? Is there too much violence in video games? Is that something you inspired to make?
Of course, I feel like that's kind of the default interaction in many games, and I try to a bit circumvent that, like in many platformers where you have all kinds of cute creatures and then you have to stomp on them to kill them. And I felt like maybe I want to do something else. Like maybe you want to stomp on the enemies, but they don't die. And like you have to maybe get to know those enemies, or well, they are not really enemies in my game. They are just creatures. I would be comfortable with making a violent game as well, but for this game, it felt like this is what I want to explore.
You're working with TIC-80, that's a fantasy console, but it's quite limiting, right? How does that influence your development of the game?
It basically shapes everything around Emurom. It's like how big the world is and what is the color palette and how much can I have sprites or sounds or code even. So it's of course it's very limiting, but I kind of needed something like that because my ideas usually tend to go like overflow, so I need something to keep me focused, and this TIC-80 and fantasy consoles are perfect for that.
There's a demo out right now. When will the full game be released?
I'm trying to get it done at least in early 2021.
Well, thank you for the conversation, and good luck with your game.
Thank you. It was nice to be featured here.
Hey, are you a game developer?
Yes, I am. I make probably very reduced games. Like there's not like one big inspiration. Like I didn't grow up with like Zelda or something like that. So I'm more looking at like the small parts of games and like game engines and stuff and what you can do with that.
Yeah, you make a lot of experimental game mechanics. What's the process of coming up with those ideas and experimenting with them?
It's just ideas, right? Before a few hours ago, I saw a woodpecker, like one of those birds that hit the trees with the beak, like tuk 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 tuk. And I was thinking, like, I want to prototype a fat bird. Like, he can't really fly, but he can fly a little bit. If I have time, I'll do that. And some of those experiments end up on Twitter.
You started 10MG, which is a collection of 10-minute long games. What made you start that?
Talking to publishers and being rejected for like game length, constantly having to justify like, oh, your game is only 2 hours long. Like, we don't know if we can sell that and stuff like that. I was like, okay, so how do I make sure that in the future people can sell short games? Like, how do I raise short game acceptance kind of? And the way to do that is to provide like a radical idea. So if a game is 10 minutes long and I sell it on Steam, that's insane. If my game is 60 minutes long and I sell it on Steam, maybe people will think, at least it's not 10 minutes long.
How does developing a large game like Wombat compare to developing small games?
There's a lot more boring coding to do, which I'm very lucky that I could hire someone to do that. Menu stuff and save systems and stuff like that. Everything takes longer and everything is much better. That's an interesting trade-off that is hard for me to manage, because normally, like when I make like one of my jam games or whatever, I'm like, oh, this is a nice idea. Okay. And 5 minutes later, it's done. And it either works or it doesn't. With Quamp, it's more like, this would be a cool idea. Then I test the mechanic. Then I have to wait for the assets. Then we make the sound effects. And like 1 week later, maybe it's kind of done.
Well, thank you for the conversation and good luck with your games.
No, thank you very much. And good luck with the podcast.
Yes, thank you. Hey, are you a game developer?
I guess not professionally, but in a sense I am.
How long have you been making games?
I've started video game development probably for about a year now. The reason I've only gotten to it so recently is because I just never thought I would have the qualifications for it. I remember I found the original Celeste, and it just kind of sent me down this rabbit hole of Pico 8 games. And that created the realization that I could just do this. It's something I could just start. It gave me a good platform to start on.
So then you started learning how to make games?
A while back, I started with Game Maker. I don't know, I didn't really stick with it for whatever reason. I think I just really liked the smaller scale of Pico 8. And so that's when I started picking up some Pico 8 tutorials just on YouTube. It took a lot of different tutorials, I feel, to just get me to kind of a baseline.
So you and a friend are making games together?
Yes, it's me and my roommate now. We're called Gooey Studios. I do the programming and most of the design work, and I do a little bit of the art too. But my roommate, he does like all of the music and that, because I don't know anything about how to make a song, and he certainly does. So our next game is called A Game About Moving a Box. We're planning to have that game done before the end of the year.
You told me that you're making games about interacting in weird ways. Can you expand on that? What you mean by that?
In a lot of games, you think about moving your character and you just hit the D-pad or you hit the arrow keys and then they start moving in the direction you want. I think it's interesting to have a bit of a barrier there that makes you think more about how you're interacting with things. Just a bit of a stipulation on how you control the game.
Well, thank you for the conversation and good luck with your game.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's cool to participate in the scene like this.
Hey, are you a game developer?
Yeah, I'm a game developer. I'm called 5peer. I've been making games for about 3 years. I like mucking around with real 3D and fake 3D, in Love 2D especially.
Yeah, I noticed you're making a 3D game with the Love framework, which is made for 2D games. How come?
Yeah, in my opinion, Love 2D is one of the most free game development frameworks that there is. It'll let you make basically everything yourself, and that's something I really like. Most of the big engines, you don't know how things work, you just use them. And if something goes wrong, then the game developer can't really fix it. Well, they might be able to find a workaround, but that'll take quite a bit of time. But then you're waiting on an engine developer to go and fix the problem for you, which could take months. Whereas with this, if something goes wrong, it's my fault, and I can fix it fairly quickly, hopefully.
Right now you're working on Ethington. What's the game about?
Okay, if you imagine you've just went on holiday to a new country and it's all different and they're using a different language and they've got different ways of doing things, different architecture, different sort of environment to be in. That's this, except it's, inside an inside-out planet in space with robot people and there's various lizards and strange things living in the world.
How has it been to design a game that's more about exploring than to succeed in a specific goal? Does that take a different approach?
We want to make lots of little things which spark curiosity. I've got various stone circles around the map which will, you look at them, you want to, oh hey, what's that? And you might go there and then you see something else that you want to see. You create your own goals by your own curiosity, really.
Well, thank you for the conversation and good luck with your game.
Thanks.
Hey, are you a game developer?
I am. I'm a writer, I'm a designer. I started Far Few Giants with Richard.
What kind of games do you make with your studio?
Almost everything we do is interactive fiction in some way.
And how does interactive fiction differ from other media besides being interactive?
Interactive fiction really invests the player. Any characters that you write as a writer get way more lifetime in the player's brain because they're there thinking about them as a person, they're thinking about the character's wants and needs.
Your last games have been on political issues. How do you decide on which political issue you focus next?
It's an emotional thing. It's just whatever has pissed us off the most recently. Like The Night Fisherman started because Priti Patel, who is the UK Home Secretary, did a tweet, announced that they were ending free movement as if it was a good thing. So Richard and I got really pissed off. It's just whatever we're emotionally engaged with. Because if the creator of a thing is emotionally engaged with the subject matter, they're going to make better work because they're going to care about it more. They're going to be more passionate about it.
I think Ring of Fire was really cool, but you weren't able to find a publisher for it. How did it make you feel?
It was frustrating. So the next step was to go prove ourselves first and not worry about publishers. So we decided to spend that time that we would otherwise spend on prototypes for publishers and use it instead to just make short games and release them directly to the public. If at the end of it, we pitched one of those things to a publisher and it didn't work, we would still come away with released games. We'd have a significantly stronger portfolio. We'd have gained more following in the industry. It was just kind of a no-brainer that was going to be a better way of doing things. And it's worked out really well for us. Like, we're up to like, I don't know, 80,000 downloads or something. We've got a mailing list of 40-odd thousand people. So I think all in all, it's just a way better way to go.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for the conversation and good luck with your games.
Cool.
Hey, are you a game developer?
Yes, and also an AI researcher. So I'm Ahmed Khalifa, and I'm a game developer and designer and an AI researcher in games.
So that's interesting. You're an AI researcher, but also a game designer. How does the AI research influence your game design?
Mainly my game design influenced my AI career. So like my AI is specifically about using AI to help game designers and developers to create better games. So whenever I'm designing more and more, I learn about better habits and stuff, and then try to see how AI can help make these habits more easy to notice and be easier to use. But at the same time, like some of the stuff that I do in gaming feel like a lot of redundant. So I try to use AI just to design some of this stuff for me, because I get like really bored quickly. So I think they're both influencing each other.
What type of game developer would you describe yourself as?
I love to do like any ideas come my head, and I also love to create smaller and shorter games, because this is also what I love to play. And at the same time, I don't have much time to create very long games that take forever to finish.
You're from Egypt, but you now live in America, right? How does the indie scene in the US differ from the indie scene in Egypt?
The funny thing is, I'm into more in the indie scene online than in just local indie scenes. Like, I like just to go to that event and just set up my laptop and make people just test the game, compared to like trying to do something like that online. Sometimes it doesn't work as I want and don't get the feedback I need. So this is a part that I'm gonna miss.
What can we expect from you these coming years?
I'm working on a lot of other AI systems. I hope one of them be helpful to a lot of designers and developers, because most of it's just to assist them and make their tasks in designing and developing more easier and less tedious.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you for the conversation and good luck with your game and your research.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hey, are you a game developer?
Yes. My name is Gabriel. I've been developing games for over a decade now, and yeah.
What kind of games do you make?
I try to make all different kinds of games. A lot of the games that I make thus far have been really light on story. Like, narrative design is always something that I found kind of challenging, which is why back when the most recent GMTK Game Jam happened, I used it as an opportunity to make a narrative game, which ended up becoming Stroke, which was my entry into the 10-minute game collection.
So you made a game with quite a serious topic. What inspired you to make that?
So the original reason that I made Stroke was because the theme of the game jam was out of control. And it got me thinking about the moments in your life where you feel out of control, like a hospital waiting room. Things feel out of control because you're just waiting to hear back from the doctor. You're waiting to find out whether something was successful or not. And I had a personal experience that I ended up writing into the story for the game that I made.
So games tend to be fun or challenging. How do you balance the fun factor with the fact that it's quite a serious topic?
With a lot of other games that I've made, I've focused really on the fun factor, but I think games can be and should be thought of as more than just fun. I wanted to deliberately tackle something that I knew was going to be a really heavy subject and that I didn't think it was going to be fun. I figured that this is going to be a game that was like, wow, that story really went to some intense places. Yeah, that's what I really wanted, was to get some sort of sense of catharsis for anyone who had been in a similar situation.
Stroke is out. What can we expect next from you?
I'm currently working as part of Bluish-Green Studios on a city building game with very heavy emphasis on character management and events and decision making.
Well, thank you for the conversation and good luck with your games.
Likewise, thank you very much.
And stay healthy.
You too.
Hey, are you a game developer?
I sure am. Yeah, I've been making small games mostly, kind of bright, arcadey, fun, generally non-violent sort of games.
Right, you made Ripped Pants at Work, which is a game about ripping your pants at work. Where did that come from?
I actually was inspired by a song by the rapper Open Mike Eagle. It's a song about ripping your pants before a show. And it just got me thinking about, like, what would I do if I ripped my pants? Like, how do you hide your ripped pants and not get caught, not get embarrassed?
I noticed in your game, the characters are very blocky, and I was wondering, is that a style, or is that your limitation as an artist?
A little of both, I guess. I'm not super proficient with 3D modeling, so they're all made with Magica Voxel, which is like a super easy voxel creating program. And I kind of used that as a style. Like I ended up making it so like everything fits in with that square, blocky sort of aesthetic. So it's all kind of born from my inexperience with 3D modeling, but I hope I made it work for me.
What was the response on Ripped Bands at Work?
A lot of people took notice, I think mostly because, it's super goofy. I think it's been good for Let's Plays, just because it's something easy to pick up and can also be frustrating enough that it gets a funny reaction from people. Critics have, if they've reviewed it, it's pretty good, like 8 out of 10-ish. I'm very happy with it, especially for my first solo game.
Yeah, it sounds very good. Is that something you expected?
No, it's something that I hoped would happen. Realistically, I wasn't really expecting it to get a lot of notice, so I think it surprised me a bit there.
And what are you working on right now?
Nothing super concrete right now. Yeah, on my Twitter, I have just some GIFs of prototypes every once in a while.
Well, thank you for the conversation. Good luck with your games, and keep your pants safe.
Thank you. You too.
Hey, are you a game developer?
Yes, I am. I usually make a lot of smaller-ish games for like Ludendare or other game jams, and right now I'm making a really big project called Hecdeck. Yeah.
Can you tell more about Hecdeck?
Hecdeck is a bullet hell card game where time moves when you do. You collect cards and play cards as you try to beat the enemies and get to all 5 stages.
Time moves when you do. Was that inspired by Superhot?
I wasn't directly inspired by that. It just happened to be that I found that mechanic really works well with this idea of a bullet hell card game where being able to stop time lets you stop and think about your actions even during this hectic situation on your screen.
How does the Game Jam version differ from the current version?
The original or Ludendare version is a very distilled version of the idea. Really, that version is mostly just to show off the mechanic, The new version expands mostly in terms of content. There's 5 stages and a dozen enemies and 5 bosses. There's also a shop screen with mostly content is the biggest difference, but a lot of new card abilities and just a lot of interactions with the enemies is really the difference there.
You do a lot of game jams, right? What is your game jam strategy?
Recently, I've had a more concrete strategy where when the theme is announced, I immediately go take a shower, and in the shower, I think of a game idea. By the time that's done, I usually have a few ideas, and I start prototyping them. Somehow it seems I rarely come up with multiple ideas and try to pick one.
You made a game for the 10MG collection. What's the game called, and what's it about?
The game doesn't really have a verbal title, it's just a smiley face emoticon. I just thought that would be an interesting title. And the game it's kind of meta, it's a collection of 10 mini-games inside of itself. Each one is based on a well-known mechanic or a classic game like Tetris, but it has a twist for each one, and each one is also connected to the next in an interesting way.
Okay, well, thank you for the conversation, and good luck with your games.
Awesome, no problem, thank you.
Hey. Are you a game developer?
Yes, I am a game developer. I guess I feel like more of a game designer, and then I'm a game developer just because I have to be to design games.
What kind of game developer are you? Or game designer then?
Experimental. I really like the term speculative fiction, and so I thought a little bit about the idea of speculative games. Somehow it strikes me better than experimental games. I like the play of games. I want to experiment with the nature of play and games.
Can you expand on that? How is speculative fiction different from experimental?
Wow, I don't even know how to describe it. A lot of the time, it feels like experimental games tend away from deep gameplay and systems. So just the term experimental games is something that I'm not sure how much I relate to. I really want playable things. I want to make things that I want to play, but I also want those things to be experimental.
So is speculative fiction like a balance between abstract and conventional?
I don't know there's no word for it. It's so hard to describe because I don't want to say this is what games are and all these other things. They're not games, but I feel like there's an old idea of what a game is that I wish I could name.
It sounds to me that you have a distinctive style, but you can't describe it in words. You can only describe it in games.
Yeah, that's definitely accurate. I often feel like I can really only speak through games. I'll write blog posts and stuff, but I'm what I really want is I just want to make a small game and give it to someone.
Yeah, cool. What's the game you're most proud of that you made?
I guess my current one, it's always just like whatever I'm currently working on is what I'm the most excited about. Handmade Death Labyrinth is like a very mechanical little short story simulation of a dungeon crawl, and I'm really proud of it right now in this moment. Like I love the way the whole thing comes together. So it's Handmade Death Labyrinth issue 0. I wasn't going to have an issue 0, but then 10MG kind of rolled around and I was like, I can tell a short story through the language of this game that I've been working on for a few months.
Cool. Well, thank you for the conversation and good luck with your speculative fiction.
Thanks.
Hey, are you a game developer?
Yeah, full-time game developer. Been doing this for 20 years now. Made some puzzle games, made some games for celebrities. I've done some stuff in theme parks and museums. Got about 35 to 40 games under my belt so far.
So in these past 20 years, what have you seen changing in the indie scene?
Back then, indie truly was the small company or the single person just working out of their bedroom making games. And today, indie doesn't even really have a term anymore. Indie used to mean something, and today indie is just a buzzword that's thrown around.
Do you think we need a new term for it, like true indie or something?
We might need multiple terms because there's people that call themselves indie, but they make games just for fun. There's other people that call themselves indie and they make them professionally. There's other ones that call themselves indie and they not only do professionally, but they have the $1 million teams. There needs to be a huge breakdown of it. I don't think it's going to happen. I know a lot of small business owners actually that are pretty frustrated over it because they will hire people not fully realizing they're just sort of like little bedroom coders who don't really do it for money, and they're trying to pay them to do a job, and they keep flaking out because they don't do this as a job, so they don't really know how. And that's fine because they're not professionals doing it as a professional job, but it's hard to sometimes separate A from B.
Right now you're working on A Potato Tale, Light of the Elder Star. What's the game about?
It is a puzzle platformer with JRPG battles about the potatoes, which are potato cats. And we got this pretty deep JRPG story. We got a big community and a lot of interest going on already for the game. So yeah, it's going to be pretty big.
So after 20 years, are you still learning new things?
Oh, absolutely. If somebody stops learning, they should just leave the industry. How to kind of balance and manage a large project, a lot of programming techniques for complicated intertwining systems, things like that, especially also with how to work with a lot of external companies. It's definitely something I would recommend for any developer to do is, to do that big dream project. You're going to learn so much from it.
Well, thank you for the conversation and good luck with your game.
Thanks, and good luck to you too. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, are you a game developer?
Yes. I don't think so. I mostly make local multiplayer games, short games, in game jams.
Why local multiplayer games in particular? Is there a reason for that?
I have fond memories of playing local multiplayer games, and in a game jam they tend to bring so much with so little, which is what you want, right? You want to do something small but that brings a lot of emotions and interplay. Most of these were made in physical game jams, and so you could get people around you that were making games and sit them together and be like, hey, you too, play this game. I think that's the reason I tended to gravitate toward those.
Which game jam game are you the most proud of?
I think it's Linked Space. It really came together at the end, which is a thing that I'm always afraid of. And this one I remember thinking, oh my god, it's not going to come together, it's not going to come together. And at the end, it came together, everything worked, and it exceeded our expectations.
Currently you're working on a bigger project called From the End of the World. What's the game about?
It's a narrative game about a breakup and getting over it and finding yourself and who you are. So it was an attempt at doing something else, making a larger, not really a big game, but larger by my standards game, and try to focus more on narrative.
What kind of game developer are you?
I'm a generalist. I enjoy doing everything badly. I don't enjoy focusing on being super good at this specific thing, whether it's technical art or design. I enjoy sort of bouncing around. If there's something that interests me, even if I'm really bad at it, I want to learn how to do it at least once.
Cool. So any closing thoughts?
Make games that you want to enjoy. Make games about what you know. Games are not that important. The make you make is just a tool to have an experience, right? If you could somehow create this experience in someone else's mind, you would do that instead of making the game. So the game is just the tool. It's not the final product.
Okay, well, thank you for the conversation and good luck with your game.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, thank you.